Welcome to Expressive Pages, Journaling the Everyday. I'm Judith Cassell Mamet. An art journal is a great way to record the world around you, whether on a trip overseas or from your own doorstep. It's also a way to explore your creative expression, starting with what you might already love to do. Do you like to hand stitch, collage, sketch, stamp? All of these can find a place in the pages of your journal. And you don't have to be an accomplished artist. Just be curious, play with yummy materials, and let creativity take a hold. I've taught at both the high school and university levels. I continue to teach with the Art Student League of Denver, and I'm the author of Joyful Pages. In Lesson 1, we'll use simple, portable tools, and I'll show you 2 ways to make your own journal. Then activate the page with color, design, and ways to organize. Text can be a major or minor part of your journal. Do you use your camera phone all the time? We can pull that into this practice, and then we'll look at how found objects can bring your journal to life. Whether you're globetrotting or just strolling around the local park, every experience you choose to journal will have added dimension with the help of this class. You'll find a full supply list in your class materials. I'm looking forward to walking with you through the process, so if you have any questions, please be sure to ask. I'd also love to see what you're working on, and sharing your work develops this community, so please post your work. Let's get started. In this lesson, we're going to cover my philosophy on art journaling, and I'll show you how to make 2 kinds of really simple journals yourself, and we'll look at the supplies and materials you need to get started. I've had the honor of traveling with students to all kinds of magical places, to sketch, to pick up wonderful ephemera, to collage in our art journals. We've gone to cities, we've gone to the mountains, we've gone to Europe, we've traveled around town and our neighborhoods. I find that art journaling is something that's so much fun to do in any group. I can art journal with my family, I've gotten my kids involved, I can go off with my girlfriends for the afternoon, and I like solo trips as well. It gets into this wonderful mindset of traveling and looking for things in a new way and being curious about where you are, and basically opening yourself up to the inspiration that exists all the time. Have you ever had someone come to visit you or your workplace that they've never been to your house before, and you find yourself showing them all around your home, your neighborhood, maybe your city, and you realize that you're seeing things with new eyes? I'm always aware of that when I have a visitor. That's the lens of curiosity. That's the part I want to capture in this class. I have a motto I created to help direct my process working with expressive pages: mindful, playful, and meaningful. Mindful is that curiosity, whether we're someplace familiar or traveling great distances. Playful is the way we approach the materials, taking on a no-fail attitude, experimenting with common tools to find new ways to use them. Wait until you see how we can use red wine. And meaningful implies that I'm going to record a moment in a way that anchors that experience. Mindful, playful, meaningful is an invitation to not let anything derail the effort to find some creative time, even with a busy schedule. It's an invitation to journal the everyday. First, though, I'd like to just clarify the terms that I'm using. I always call it art journaling, but it's really the same as visual journaling and mixed media journaling. Art journaling combines text and visual elements. The text we use, though, is different than the text in a diary. You know, in a diary, if you're keeping a diary of your life, it's very personal and can be stream of consciousness. The text in an art journal doesn't have to be that personal, but it could be. It could be as simple as just keeping the days of the week or a grocery list or something like that. But the text is an important element. It adds some graphic element to your journal pages. The art piece of an art journal can be really anything, but it is different also from a scrapbook. Some of you might come from the scrapbooking world. With scrapbooking, we tend to use pre-made things like quotes or text or images, and many of the page setups, the compositions look similar. With art journaling, you're really invited to explore and play with your unique creative expression handwriting, creating all of your own photographs, and not using store-bought items. We do love the materials and the supplies from scrapbooking, so if you have some of those in your house, you're going to be happy to use those in art journaling as well. Now let's look at the journals that I like to work with. Choosing a journal is really fun because it helps you think about where are you going, how portable do you need to be, who are you going with, and the length of time you're going out. So remember, for this class, we're talking about journaling the everyday, but I am going to draw in some examples of journals that you can take with a dedicated trip. Maybe you're going away for a week or a long weekend or 2 weeks or longer to a specific place that you want to record. So with that in mind, you might be surprised that these tags become journal pages for me, and I'm going to show you how to make a tag journal. They're called shipping tags or craft tags. The darker color is generally a craft tag. Shipping tags come in both manila and white, and they often come with either string or wire. So tags will make a really fun journal, and they're incredibly portable. One will fit in my back pocket easily. I also use a small drawing pad that has a coil binding because this, being as small as it is, this can fit in a coat pocket or a very small purse. I'll work with this during the day, maybe doing some quick sketches, and rip the paper out to adhere into a more permanent, larger journal. The other journals that are favorites of mine have coil bindings so that they will lay flat as I'm working on them. They're very portable, but they're a little thicker, so I need a slightly larger purse or even a backpack. This is my favorite one. It's made by Aquabee, and they have a really nice paper that can take water media as well as colored pencils, and I can glue things in really easily, and I just happen to really like that size. Here's one by Holbein, which I love because I like the decorative ribbon, and the paper in here is super. The coil binding is a little bit thin, but it still will hold up to hanging some things from it. And this one is quite popular and can be found anywhere. It's a visual journal by Strathmore. These other journals have bindings that are sewn, so these hold up really nicely. They don't lay as flat as a coil binding, but I do love these. The smaller one is one of my favorites. I'll be showing you a number of my books that I've used for big trips to Europe with my family. I do love these journals. This fun elastic holds it together. And the other nice thing about a handbook journal is that there's an envelope already stuck in the back. These are different sizes. This back one here is got watercolor paper and is great for a longer trip. And then the last one I wanted to share with you is the journal made by Stillman and Byrne. You might notice this one says Alpha Series and that one says Zeta. There's a Beta as well. The only difference between those three is whether the paper is rough or smooth. But this paper, all of their journals will hold water media really well. Okay, so tag journals are enormously fun and a little bit crazy because it's hard to imagine how something so simple as one of these shipping tags can become something delicious and actually something you can take with you to a coffee shop or really any place and work on. All these tags have the holes in them up there. I take a very simple book ring. I've bought these are 2-inch, which I like the best. They're the largest. But you can find book rings that are colored and various sizes. All I do, couldn't be easier, I'm just going to open up the book ring and slip the tags on. That's it. It's incredibly simple. But here's the amazing thing. I'll show you a finished journal I made. I was in New York City. I found a gray tag, which I used as the cover, if you will. Here's a coffee sleeve, really easy. I put a hole in it right on the book ring. There you go. Here's a tag that I cut into the shape of a bus because I had a funny adventure on a bus. I was at a restaurant in New York City and I had a tag with me and I had ordered beet soup, which is a bright red color. Some had spilled on the table, so I took the tag and I mopped it up on the tag. I thought it was kind of fun to remember that, so I included that in the journal. And I did find these ribbons really on the street in New York. And the thing about this tag journal is you can attach things to this metal ring really easily. So I like adding that into the journal as well. The other tags on this journal are from sketching in various places, business cards or promotional material, ephemera that I'm picking up in various places. This tag has a card that was split and put on the front and the back. This tag journal I also used machine stitching on, which is really fun to be able to incorporate. And these are just colors of New Mexico that I was impressed with. So I added them in, sewed the tag right in the machine. This is Rat Tail. I learned how to use this in one of the Craftsy classes that Carol Ann Waugh teaches. It's called Stupendous Stitching. Paper tag journals display beautifully. If you like mixed media and a lot of texture in your house, imagine how lovely these would be hanging on the wall. Next, I'm going to show you how to make a journal out of paper bags. This is a really fun technique and anybody can do it. And look at the material that we're working with. Completely simple, something you can find pretty much anywhere. This is a paper bag used for lunches generally. I have found them in both the brown and the white, and I'm going to show you how to do a little magic and turn it into your own journal. Here's how I transformed a simple paper bag into a journal that was really fun to work with while I was in New York City recently. One of the things that's so much fun about using a paper bag is that you automatically have a pocket to store things that are either too large, in this case it's a folded map, or that you just feel like being able to interact with by pulling it out of the pocket and taking a look at. I'm going to show you how to hand stitch your bag, but first it's important to notice that I suggest using 3 bags only. If you have more than 3 nested together, the bag becomes kind of unwieldy and the pages stick out. They don't line up nicely together. So the first step is choose 3 bags and fold all of them down the middle. So I'm folding this bag in half, and I'm going to alternate where the opening is with the other bags that are folded. So the opening of the paper bag is on my right side for this bag. I'm going to put one on top of it and the opening is on the far side. And then I put the other one over it with the opening again on the right. So I'm alternating where the opening is. You might notice that these bags are different size. That actually makes it more fun. Also, I could certainly mix up the brown and the white bags. You could have larger bags, smaller bags. All of this is open to your own creativity. You get to do whatever you'd like. So now that I have the bags lined up, now it's important to use some paper clips to hold your bags in place. So I'm just clipping the right side and the left side, so no fancy tools here at all. I've paper clipped my bags. Again, I have 3 together with alternating openings. And then I'm just randomly marking where the hand stitch holes are going to be. There's no science or magic to this. You can put them pretty much anywhere. You can spread those marks out. You can put them close together. The next thing you're going to do is take a simple push pin. These are all over the place. Of course, you could use a book-awl if you have one, but you don't have to get anything fancy. I'm going to take the push pin and push it through all 3 bags following my guide, and I'm trying to make the holes right where the seam is, so I'm on the crease of all 3 bags. I'll continue to put the holes in. It's basically pre-punching so that when I'm sewing it, it's just really easy. Once I've got the holes in, then I'm going to measure, basically embroidery floss, but again, you can use anything. So this is embroidery floss that I've pre-measured by measuring it against the bag and doing that 3 times. So there's 1, 2, 3, to figure out the right length for the floss. I've threaded just a regular needle. This has a slightly bigger eye opening, but whatever you have at home is going to work. And then I just simply go through and hand stitch. This one has been completed, and you can see the knot right up there at the top. You can put a knot in however you'd like. You could also leave a little piece dangling so that you could add some different ephemera you find, buttons, beads, whatever. On this book, I added some fibers, and again, in another lesson, I'll show you how to attach a cork if that's where you want to go. So that's a hand stitch book. You could do the same thing with 3 bags put together, alternating the openings, and instead of hand stitching it, you can machine stitch it. So here you see I have the paper bags already set up, alternating the openings. They're folded, and I have 2 paper clips just holding them in place. I'm going to take them over to a basic sewing machine and just do a straight stitch. The only trick that I can tell you is it's a good idea to use a nice sharp needle, but I don't think it matters that much what kind of thread you use. I will show you how to make it be a little bit stronger and heftier. So I'm just going to put the paper bag in, line up the needle to follow along the crease. I'm just going to do a simple running stitch, and of course you can play with all kinds of decorative stitches and go to your heart's content with fooling around with a lot of different machine stitches and lengths and all that. For this demo, it's just a really simple one. That's the most basic way to sew your book. On this one, I did 3 lines of stitching. Again, it gives it a little more heft, and I liked that color, so I just kept going. 1 line of stitch works, 2 or 3 will work just fine. And the other variation that I know some of you are probably going to enjoy is doing a zigzag stitch. And you can see that binding here. Again, any of these work, you get to explore your machine and explore your own creative expression with this. Now, one thing is that when you are finished sewing up and creating your paper bag, it feels kind of flimsy. The paper is not great, and you can't really do any water media work directly on it. So, the trick with the paper bag book is going to be what you add to the paper. The more you can collage onto the surface of these paper bags, the better the feel of the paper bag book, and the more it's inviting you to actually turn the pages. It has a nicer heft and weight when you actually do your collage. And I really like the way the black ink looks against the brown, but again, you can use any color, anything like that, on either of the brown or the white paper bag. This one is going just a little bit farther. I used machine stitching on the cover because I'm getting ready to go to Crested Butte for the Wildflower Festival, and this is the journal I'm going to be taking with me. And you can see I've machine stitched through the cover, and you can see it in the back. And then I've already started to adhere some collage papers and sketches. This is a heavier weight paper, just to give the book some heft, and so it will travel easily. But these pockets are calling me. I'm going to find some really great stuff and stick it in here. If you're working with children and you prefer not to do any sewn bindings, or you just want to explore some other ways to hold these bags together that might give you some more creative options, here's some suggestions. In this bag, all I've done is take some black duct tape and gone over the folded seam there, and that's a perfectly wonderful binding. After you put the duct tape on, the book might pop open like that, so just set a hard book on top of it for a little bit of time, and it'll settle down and be a wonderful book. And look how easy that would be while you're traveling. Another non-sewn binding uses a hole punch, which is a pretty common tool to have in the house. To do the hole punch, what I recommend is get your pages folded, then insert the hole punch as high up as you can away from the edge. Center the punch along the seam or the folded area that you can see, and punch 1 bag at a time as opposed to trying to go through all 3 bags. And you don't have to be too exact. All of these techniques are really forgiving. That's why they're great to do with kids. So I've punched this bag, the top bag. I've got the 2 others already hole punched, and I'm going to make sure that my openings are, again, alternated. So this bag will go to the opening to the left, this bag the opening to the right. Now I've got some options. I can take a rubber band, just a simple rubber band, and stick the rubber band through the opening and grab the rubber band on the back side with a stick. Now I have used, for smaller bags, I've put the hole punches in, and I've actually used cinnamon sticks as the back. And kids really love that. So the Rubber band will go through the other set of holes. Grab the stick, and here you can see the finished product. There's the rubber band holding on to the stick. On the inside, that's my single rubber band just holding on. That makes a great binding, especially if you're going with kids into the country or into the woods. But if you're doing any kind of nature journaling, this works really well. And the last binding, that is a non-sewn binding, also uses holes in the paper bag and a simple ribbon. The one trick for this is to measure 4 times the length. For the hand sewn, we measured 3 times the length of the bag to figure out the length of the floss. For this, we need to do it 4 times. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. I'd cut the ribbon here, thread it through the openings, and simply tie it off. And again, the nice thing about this is it gives you a way to also include some interesting dangly things on your binding. One other tip is if you measure the size of your journal and pre-cut pages, this will give you something to work with while you're out and about. So this black page was cut to fit the brown paper. When I'm out and about, I can just attach this and get going on my journaling. Remember that the more you glue on to the paper bag, the better heft it will be, and the more enjoyable it will be to work on. That's it. Paper bag journals are really simple. I look forward to seeing yours. I hope you'll post your work. Don't you just love to travel light? There's a point where you just want to stop thinking about taking lots and lots of stuff. Well, I've figured out for myself that there are 3 things that I take when I just want to be on the go. Of course, I can add to this, which I'll show you in a minute, but for the lightest possible adventure where I'm bringing the least amount of stuff, also it allows me to be almost invisible. So I can be working on a tag without a whole lot of attention. I'll just take a tag or 2 in my back pocket, just a basic pencil with an eraser. And these are my go-to pens, the Micron 005, because the nib is really small and I can build the thickness of the line with this easily enough, but I don't have to bring a whole lot. So based on the portability and where you're going and your mood, you can add a little more to that certainly. The next level, if you will, I'll take the pen and the pencil, and then I add a very small set of watercolors. I like this Winsor Newton. This one has lasted me a long time. I always need to bring a small piece of paper towel or a napkin because the kind of work I do with the watercolor set includes working with a water chamber brush. This is my favorite brand, this Koi brand. There are lots and lots on the market, but I like this. It doesn't leak, it's easy for me to work with, it's dependable and really easy to fill. So I unscrewed the top away from the water chamber. That's how the water gets in. And the trick with these brushes, which you only learn after playing with it a little bit, is that they screw on backwards. So if you have trouble, just remember to go in reverse. And don't lose the cap. This is really important to be able to put back on. But this has gotten through a lot of security when I've traveled in airports and whatnot. I'm not ever stopped. That little tiny bit of water doesn't seem to make a big difference. But I like to carry this set plus my pen and pencil with me for the small portable trip that I'm taking, whether it's every day or a longer trip. I usually take a piece of watercolor paper, and I have found that buying the watercolor postcards makes it really easy. So I'll take out a postcard or 2, or if I can fit it, I'll bring this drawing pad just because this is nice to do a quick sketch somewhere, and then I can rip this out and attach it to a journal. Now, let's say you're going someplace where you're in the car or you have room for slightly more fun stuff to play with. Then I'll bring a bag that has some extra supplies in just for fun. And this bag easily fits into my handbag. This happens to be a backpack, but any lady's handbag would probably work. And in here, some of the things you might not think about, but are really fun to travel with. One thing is a pump bottle with a little bit of water in it. I often work with a lettering guide, which I'll show you coming up. Some decorative tape. Here's a trick. How about bringing infant nail scissors? These are surprisingly sharp, and these have also gotten through security because of the blunt end. So infant nail scissors are great. This one's going to be really fun. This is just sandpaper. I'm going to show you how to use that. And of course, some glue sticks and a spoon to work with some natural resources. And then the pens, the pencils, and it doesn't really matter what kind of glue stick you take. And then I'll bring either a vinyl eraser or a kneaded rubber eraser. Both of those make for good travel items. And I usually only take 3 pencils. These are colored pencils. These are watercolor pencils. They're water reactive, so they're going to move a little bit when I put a wet paintbrush over them. And I like these 3 colors because they're neutral and I can use them in all different ways and in all different venues. There is a full resource list in your class materials. Take a look and let me know if you have any questions. Here are some other tools that I have that usually stay in my house, but if I'm going someplace for a couple of weeks and want to have some other fun things to play with, I'll bring them along. Again, this all depends on how much stuff you like to carry and how long you're going to be out of the house for. Double stick tape is great. That saves a little time instead of glue sticking. Double stick tape works well. I like to play with that. This is just a stamp ink pad. I like this size, but there's no magic to this. Any stamp ink will work. Of course, some gel pens are great, and having something that'll write on black is always delightful. And so here I have a gold and a silver one. This is decorative tape. Sometimes it's known as washi tape. I have a whole bunch of different tapes. Sometimes I'll bring these along if I know I'm going somewhere where I'm going to collect a lot of business cards and found objects. And then, of course, a brayer is wonderful to help things stick when you're doing your collage work. A brayer is a great tool. This is a small one. You can get them any size. And then we're going to do a lot with chalks. These are soft pastels. I'm not going to actually be picking them up. I'm going to be working with them in the box. I happen to like this brand a lot. I'm going to show you a novel way to apply the chalks using a cotton square that's kind of like a cosmetic cotton. They come in round as well. It doesn't really matter. Anything soft will work, including a piece of paper towel. I just happen to like to pick up these cotton squares, and I'll be using those with the chalks. The final category of materials that I like to work with, and I'm going to guess that you might already have, are found objects that you've just picked up from your journeys or your travels down the street or in some foreign location. I do like to travel with a plastic bag so that I've got some place to put these things. And found objects can include natural objects like shells or a feather. I love the unnatural things, these rusty flat things. Of course, the flatter the object is, the easier it's going to be to put into our journal. But anything that has some dimensionality, we can try to include on the cover, and I'll show you other ways to work with them. Finding bits of fiber, or if you know some knitters and they might have some extra yarn sitting around, if that yarn attracts you, just take a couple of small pieces. We can incorporate that into our books. Maps are my best friends. I love the way maps look, so I'm usually picking up maps from rental car companies or from hotels, wherever I can. Of course, another best friend is a coffee sleeve, and going into the coffee houses, coffee sleeves are great. Business cards are wonderful. A tag from a wine bottle works great. This is an entrance tag to something. And then other things that I find that are really fun to work with are things like shower caps that you might pick up at a hotel. This is a shoe buff. This works just as well as the cotton that I showed with the chalk. And one last thing that you probably already have in your hand or in a pocket right now is your cell phone. I'm going to show you how to use that to help capture the moment. So in this lesson, we've looked at our journal options as a container for our experiences. We've looked at tools and materials that you can collect or work with. All of these things are going to give you a chance to be creative in your own way. And it brings us back to the motto, mindful, playful, meaningful. In the next lesson, we're going to talk about activating our pages.